Good evening. My name is Mary Kay Landon. I'm with Decision Point I Ching Consultation. I do consultations with individuals with the I Ching, but I also dabble in politics periodically, like the I Ching was historically meant to do. And as you recall in my other YouTube video, or should we say the I Ching, correctly prognosticated that Joe Biden would be the victor. So tonight I'm turning my attention to another very important political race in the U.S., that of the Georgia runoffs, which will decide who controls the Senate, Republicans or Democrats. One of the easiest ways to cast the I Ching is to take 3 pennies and throw them 6 times, taking note of how they fall. The outcome of these 6 throws forms what we call a hexagram. There are 64 hexagrams in the I Ching, each representing an archetype of importance to humankind. So for the David Perdue-John Ossoff race, I ask the probability of each candidate prevailing. So it's 2 separate questions. For David Perdue, the I Ching kind of returned that he was ignorant, had a lot to learn, but somewhat self-willed. Maybe we could have seen that in that he skipped the debate, didn't think that was an important thing. Now I understand he's under quarantine and can't campaign in these last few days. But at any rate, that he's kind of self-willed. Even though he has support and help, he's self-willed and a little too ignorant. And in terms of the I Ching, what it returned was that he's going to face restrictions and limitations in the results, which kind of, for politicians, spells defeat. As for John Ossoff, I mean, he's not perfect either. He kind of comes from an underdog position. The I Ching literally characterized him as the second wife in the sort of ancient patriarchal Chinese marriage system, where sometimes a younger sister would come into the marriage as a junior wife. He's kind of the junior guy. So even though his political cred may not be quite on the par of Perdue's, he still kind of makes up for it. However, he does bear the taint of being a somewhat insincere politician. He doesn't tell the truth all of the time, apparently. The I Ching characterizes this a very, very poignant image of a husband and wife standing there with sacrificial animals that they have ostensibly sacrificed for whatever they want, for whatever, however they're trying to appease the gods. And there's no blood coming out of the animals, meaning they just picked up some dead animals. They did not kill them for the sacrifice. So they did an insincere gesture, in other words. So Ossoff is not above insincere gestures. Nevertheless, the I Ching returns a reading that he's going to be kind of, the image being treading the tail of the tiger but not getting bitten. That he's able to run in this arena with the big boys and somehow prevail. Actually, Donald Trump got a very similar, or got the same hexagram, I should say, back in 2016 when I was asking about the outcome of that race. So it's kind of about a little bit of a trickster, person who comes in with a sense of humor and can kind of skip over some of the fray and prevail. So my prediction for the Perdue-Ossoff race is that Ossoff will prevail, but it probably will be a very close election. So this brings me to the other race between Kelly Lefler and the Reverend Raphael Warnock. For Kelly Lefler, the very wealthy incumbent, in the I Ching, she gets the hexagram for wealth. And we're not talking the spiritual kind, we're talking filthy lucre. She gets the Great Harvest, basically, hexagram, with a added text of a great load being transported. And then the outcome is the sun, brightness. Even though the brightness is reliant on its fuel source, still it's a very bright future, bright reading for a politician to get. The Reverend Warnock, on the other hand, paints a very different picture than these other politicians. He's neither wealthy, nor ignorant, nor trending toward the insincere. He's trying to build coalitions among his followers as well as people that don't believe in him. He's trying to bring the flock together. At the same time, he refuses to be anything other than who he is. He does not misrepresent himself. He does not try to spin yarns or sacrifice a dead animal. He is who he is. What you see is what you get when it comes to Reverend Warnock. That said, that is not always the right path for a politician. He's going to sacrifice some votes by doing that, according to the I Ching. He does end up in a very receptive, sacred place where he's set the ground and the table for perhaps another role in politics. My personal favorite is Stacey Abrams, that she will do the same. So maybe he and her can somehow come up with a coalition event in the future and do something else. So he comes out in a good place. But my prediction is that Kay Lefler will prevail in that race. So my predictions are that John Ossoff prevails in that race against David Perdue, and Kay Lefler prevails in the race against the Reverend Warnock, Raphael Warnock, which means that the Senate, according to the I Ching, will still remain in Republican hands, but only with one vote, which should make it very interesting for Joe Biden and for Leader McConnell to negotiate and to run the rapids, because there's just one vote hanging in the balance. If that vote flips somehow to a Democratic position, then Vice President Harris can come in and cast the vote. So it'll be a very interesting time. I wish you and your family a happy and safe New Year. May we all prevail and be well in the midst of this pandemic. Good night. I give also personal readings. I can be reached through my website at decisionpointiching.com, which will also be shown on my YouTube channel.